Okay, this section is on solving linear equations. A linear equation is an equation in which the variable is only raised to the first power. For example, 2x plus 3 equals 11 is a linear equation because the variable x, right there, is raised to the first power. If you don't see a 1 up there, that's assumed to be to the first power. This equation, 2x squared plus 3x equals 5, is not a linear equation because the x is up to the second power. That's actually called a quadratic equation. So let's first of all answer if these are linear equations. This equation right here, 2x plus 3 equals 4x minus 6, is a linear equation because the x's are to the first power. So is the next one, so is this one, and so is this one right here. 2t plus 3 minus 4t plus 6 equals t plus 5. That's linear because the variable t is always to the first power. But this equation right here is not a linear equation because it has an x squared in it. That would be a quadratic equation. And that comes later in the course. And this right now, what we're doing is linear equations. Okay, when we see an equation like 2x minus 3 equals 11, a typical linear equation, we think about it as having a left side and the right side. The left side and right side of the equation is separated by the equal sign. So the 2x minus 3 is on the left, and the 11 is on the right-hand side of the equation. When we solve an equation, we're trying to get the variable, usually x or t or whatever the letter is, by itself on one side of the equation, and the combination of numbers on the other side is the solution. Okay, so the equation, and also another vocabulary word here, terms. An equation is made up of things called terms, or added or subtracted items. For example, the equation x minus 3 equals 11 has three terms: the x, the minus 3, and the 11. Like if we go up to one of these, like 2x plus 3 minus 4x plus 6 equals 0, this equation has five terms: the 2x, the 3, the minus 4x, the 6, and the 0. This equation here, even though it's a quadratic, would have several terms: the 2x, the plus 3, the minus 4x squared, the 6, the 6x, and the 5. And the equal sign is what separates it from the left-hand side to the right-hand side. What we want to do is get all the terms that have the x, or the variable, on one side of the equation, and all the terms without the variable on the other side of the equation. Now we'll scroll up here and continue on. Solving the equation x minus 3 equals 11, all the terms that have the variable x are already on the left side of the equation. Again, what separates an equation, the left side from the right side, is the equal sign, and you can see the x is on the left-hand side of the equation. However, there is also a number, negative 3, that's on the left side of the equation. We want to eliminate that negative 3 from the left-hand side. So we use the addition property of equality. Addition property of equality states that if you have a left side equals a right side, a typical equation, if you add a number to the left side and you add the same number to the right side, you'll get the same solution. So what we're going to do is add 3 to both sides of this equation right here. And if we add 3 to both sides of this equation, the minus 3 and the plus 3 would be out of there, and the 3 and the 11 gives me 14, and you could check if 14 minus 3 equals 11 would be the right answer. So if we have an equation like this, x equals 10, which would be a solution, we could add 5 to both sides and get an equivalent solution. X plus 5, 10 plus 5 is 15. So usually we're doing what we're doing up here with the equation. Here's a picture of what we're talking about, adding things to both sides. This picture should describe the situation. The equal sign is the middle of the scale, and the left side and right side are what goes into the pans, like a balance here. Okay. For example, on the equation x minus 3 equals 11, we add 3 to both sides of the equation. The 3 added to the minus 3 will produce 0, and 0 plus x is just x. So here we're adding 3 to both sides. Okay. So here's the x minus 3 equals 11, and we're going to add 3 to both sides, canceling out the 3 here, and 11 plus 3 is 14. So as you can see, here's the 3 added to both sides of the equation. The minus 3 plus 3 is 0, so we just get x here. And what do we get on the other side? 14. And we can check the solution by putting 14 back into the equation. Here's the equation, x minus 3 equals 11. 14 minus 3 equals 11, so 14 is the correct solution. Let's look at an equation that has a little bit more complication on it. How would we solve the equation x over 4 plus 1 equals 12? Well, we could add a negative 1 to both sides, which is the same as subtracting 1 from both sides. It's eliminating this 1 from this side of the equation. There are three terms here: an x over 4, the plus 1, and the 12. So we need to move all the numbers to the right hand side. So we're going to subtract 1 from both sides or add a -1 to both sides. When we do that, 1 minus 1 is 0, so on the left hand side we just get x over 4. 12 minus 1 is 11. Now we need to undo the division. The division of, here we have x over 4, is the same as x divided by 4. We need to undo that divide by 4 so we can get x by itself. Well, we use the multiplication property of equality. The addition property of equality states that if the left hand side equals a number, and the left, actually the multiplication property of equality states that if the left side equals the right side, then the left side times a certain number is equal to the right side times a number. So that should be the word multiplication property. So in other words, we can multiply both sides of an equation by a non-zero number and keep the same equation. So we have A equals B, that's the same as AC equals BC. So what would we need to multiply this by would be something that undoes or undoes the divide by 4. Well, the opposite of dividing by 4 is multiplying by 4. So I multiply this side by 4 and I multiply the right hand side by 4. 4 over 4 is just 1, so on the left hand side we just get 1x, or just plain old x, and here we get 11 times 4, or 44. Let's try a couple examples here. Here's a problem. Solve this equation. Negative 5x plus 15 equals 35. First we're going to subtract 15 from both sides, and then we'll have to divide both sides by the negative 5. So let's do this right here. We're using the addition property of equations where we're subtracting 15 from both sides. The opposite of adding 15 is subtract 15. You do that to both sides. That eliminates the 15, and we just get negative 5x equals 20. 35 minus 15 is 20. Now we have to undo the multiplication by the negative 5. Okay, well we can just think of this as divide by negative 5. Really what we would be doing is multiplying by the reciprocal of negative 5, negative 1/5. But that's the same as dividing by negative 5. So we divide through by the number beside the x. That's out of there. Negative 5 divided by 5 is negative 5 divided by negative 5 is 1. So we just have 1x. And 20 divided by negative 5 is 4. So the answer is negative 4. And you could back substitute this in to see if it works. If we put the negative 4 in here, negative 5 times negative 4 is 20. 20 and 15 is 35. Let's go ahead and do a couple practice problems here. Here's one. On this problem, we would add 5 to both sides to get negative 3x equals 15. And then your next step would be divide both sides by the negative 3. And if you divide both sides by negative 3, you would get x equals, well, 15 divided by negative 3 is negative 5. You could do the same thing here. This one's a little bit more complicated where we have to move some x's. Let's take a look at this. We need to get the x's on one side, so we could either subtract 7x from both sides or add 4x to both sides. I would recommend adding 4x to both sides because then we would keep our x's positive. So we're going to add 4x to both sides to get our x's on the right. Then I'm going to add 8 to both sides to get my numbers on the left hand side. As long as the x's are on one side and the numbers are on the other side, you're okay. So I'm going to add a 4x to this side, and I'm also going to add a 4x to this side. Okay, so here again I added 4x to both sides of this equation to get rid of the minus 4x. So minus 4x plus 4x is out of there. Minus 4x plus 4x is 0. On the left hand side all I have is a 5. Since I added the 4x to the left hand side, I have to add the 4x to the right hand side. 7x and 4x is 11x, and here I have a minus 8. Now I got all my x terms on the right hand side, the 11x. Now I have to add 8 to both sides to get rid of the minus 8. Add 8 here, add 8 on this side. Minus 8 plus 8 is out of there, so I just have 11x, and on the other side 5 and 8 is 13. And for your last step, divide both sides by 11, and you would get x equals, right here, x equals 13 over 11 would be the right answer to that problem, because you would divide both sides by 11, or multiply by 1/11 if you want to think of it that way. And that will do the first part of solving linear equations.